everybody, for coming to the College Football Betting with Aaron Torres YouTube channel. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead, click that subscribe button. It helps our channel grow. It helps our audience grow. I appreciate it more than you know, as we're talking college football on this channel year round. Appreciate your support. Click that subscribe button. And the big noon kickoff game is Penn State at West Virginia. Penn State, an 8.5-point favorite. Over under set at 51.5. With Penn State, listen, it's new, but it's not new with the Nittany Lions. A year ago, they go 10-3, and I hate to say it, it was the most Penn State season that I have ever seen. By the way, I picked Penn State to make the college football playoff in that last year, the 14 playoff, second team from the Big Ten outside of Michigan. Safe to say that did not happen. And it was frustrating for somebody like me that believed in that program because all the pieces were there. We were sold on Drew Aller being better, but it was basically the same season that we have seen from Penn State time and time and time again. Defense was elite. Offense wasn't good enough. You go to Ohio State. We talked about it at the time. Ohio State, the worst quarterback situation they'll ever have. Can't get a win. Michigan, we've talked about it. They don't know who their head coach is going to be 2 hours before kickoff. Jim Harbaugh flies with them to Happy Valley. He gets suspended before the game. Sharon Moore still leads them to victory. So it was a disappointing end. You lose to Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl. But there is optimism. I mean, listen, you went 10-3. It's a 12-team playoff era. And if you take care of business, you go 10-2 this year in the regular season, you're going to that 12-team playoff. The big piece of news out of Penn State this year going into the season, we know what it is. It is they have a new offensive coordinator, and they claim it's going to be so different this year. Now, we'll see if it's actually any different. But the name to know there, I'm going to butcher this name. I might just end up calling him Coach K. I got Andy Kotwalnicki, I believe is the name. The one thing I do know about him, he was at Kansas. And Kansas, I don't think people appreciate. Kansas has been awesome. They won 9 games last year, essentially with mostly a backup quarterback, 4th in the nation in scoring, 3rd in total offense. So if he can transition that with Drew Aller, we're cooking with gasoline. Problem with Drew Aller, listen, we know what it was. A year ago, 60% completion percentage, 25 TDs, 2 INTs. That sounds great. The issue is, of course, that in the biggest games, he just did not show up. The 3 losses, 50% completion percentage in those games. I think it was actually like 49.8%. So, I mean, we're talking about a situation where he just wasn't good. He just wasn't good in the biggest games. And so you got to be better. You have the new offensive coordinator. We'll see if it gets better. In terms of West Virginia, they were one of the best stories in college football last year. Neil Brown, remember, was on the hot seat entering the year. All the guy did was casually win 9 games a season ago. How did they do it for people who did not watch? By the way, they actually played Penn State pretty tough week 1 in Happy Valley. You wouldn't know it looking at the final score. But that game was, pseudo-competitive until late. Penn State did score with 10 seconds to go to cover. But that was a game that, was 21-7 going into the final quarter. And so with West Virginia, what you need to know, what they do better than anybody, quite literally almost, they just run the football. Neil Brown took over play calling last year, 3rd nationally in rush yardage, 228 yards per game. So they're going to run the ball. Their quarterback, Garrett Green, is good, but he can be a little bit erratic. He was a guy that completed about 53% of his passes a season ago, but a guy that can beat you with his arms and his legs, because that 53% completion percentage, don't forget, he also rushed for about 700 yards and 13 touchdowns. Now, in terms of this game, I have a feel, I got an instinct, and I'm going to take the under of 51.5 in this game. Let me explain why. Bottom line is, listen, nobody does PR in the offseason like college football coaches. Think about just what we've talked about on this show. Billy Napier, this year's different, most accountable team we've ever had. Lincoln Riley, defense is miles ahead of where it was a year ago. Brian Kelly, defense is way better than it was a year ago. You go on and on. Everybody's got all the answers in the offseason. But what I truly believe is that once the games kick off, you revert back to who you are as a coach and as a program, right? And so Penn State can say all the right things. Oh, this offense is going to be this, it's going to be that. Drew Aller is going to be amazing. Well, here's the bottom line. Yeah, if you're opening against William and Mary at home, yeah, I think you're probably going to try to light it up. But what we know how James Franklin coaches in big games, especially on the road, it's going to be loud, it's going to be hostile. And my guess is, I don't want to say he coaches tight, but I think he might coach a little bit tight. I think he's going to be conservative. I think he's going to rely on the ground game. And then when West Virginia has the ball, it's strength on strength, which is unfortunate for them. They have an elite run game. I didn't even talk about that Penn State defense, which was top 10 nationally in basically every category. If the offense was even competent, that's a team that goes to the playoff and potentially has a chance to win there. Offense was terrible last year. Defense was elite. Well, this defense, I think, shuts down that West Virginia run game. So in the end, I like Penn State probably wins. It wouldn't shock me, by the way, if they don't win. Just let the record show, which, by the way, if they don't, we're going live on the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel at 3:05 Eastern time to break it down, because I am not a James Franklin guy. I think he's a fine coach. Think he's, he does coach good in big games. And so I just bring it up because we'll see if we have to go live at 3:05. But at the same time, what I do believe is this game is going to be low scoring. I don't know if either team even gets to 24. A lot of ground game, a lot of clock stoppage, or a lot of non-clock stoppage with the ground game. Again, the helmet comms. Are you going to let Drew Aller open things up? I think the helmet comms can slow things down. To me, this over under a 51.5 is an absolute no-brainer. That is my best bet.